Michael Romeo is the lead guitarist of the metal band Symphony X. Now, I have reviewed one Symphony X album on my channel, being their newest one at this moment of time, Underworld. Now, I'm not really a fan of Symphony X, never really listened to them. I gave Symphony X Underworld a shot because I know Symphony X gets a fair bit of respect, and a YouTube friend of mine was kind of talking about them, and I thought I'll give it a go. So I reviewed that album, and I didn't really mind it. I thought it was an alright album, but I did have my problems with it. Since then, I have gone back to Symphony X and given it a lot more of a listen. I've listened to Underworld again a few times. I've listened to the album Iconoclast, and I have listened to Paradise Lost. I've listened to them all numerous amount of times. And my opinion has kind of changed on that band. And there are a few opinions that I did in the review which are still kind of there. So I do like Symphony X. I am a fan. I own all three of them CDs now. So this is Michael Romeo, the lead guitarist of Symphony X. This is his own personal project, which is why it is named after him. This album is War of the Worlds Part 1. It's not the first solo project he did. The first solo album he did was back in the 90s. And this album came out in like 2018, I think. 2018 or 2017. So that is a massive gap. His first solo album that came out in the 90s was pretty much an instrumental. There was no vocals, just his playing. And for War of the Worlds Part 1, this is different. He actually has a singer. The singer has not been in any other band previously, and has never been in any other bands since. I thought maybe this would be a first, maybe this will be his band, but War of the Worlds Part 2 has actually just been announced just a few weeks ago, and has been announced to have a completely different singer. So it's somebody else now for some reason, and this is still this singer's one and only album that he's ever done. So, War of the Worlds Part 1 is a concept album around the story of, you guessed it, War of the Worlds. And then Part 2 is obviously going to conclude that story. So this has vocals. It is his own lead work. I've said I am a fan of the band, but I still have certain complaints. So what do I feel of this album? Well, when I first heard it, I thought that this was a lot better than some of the Symphony X things I've listened to. Russell Allen's vocalist, I think he has his issues, and even Michael Romeo himself, I believe, has issues. So when I heard this album, I kind of thought, well, the singer is a lot better than Russell. I personally think he's better because he sings all the time. As for Russell, has a style where it's like he kind of grunts a lot and has a lot of grit to his voice, which isn't really melodic, musical, or really a great kind of singing style. It's not like if you go to any kind of professional or singing coach, they would really kind of tell you to sing that way. They would tell you to actually sing. And Russell can, but I've come to appreciate and accept the grit that Russell does, but it's still nevertheless not really a proper singing style. This guy doesn't have grit to him, he actually sings. So that was better, that was an improvement. Underworld had some mainstream elements to it. As for this, seems more along the line of Iconoclast, where there's some progressive elements to it. So when I first heard it, I thought it was brilliant. I thought it rivaled Iconoclast, if not maybe even beaten it. But the more I've listened to it, the more I've come to understand this album, and my opinions have changed. So, what do I think now with many, many, many listens and having this kind of digest and kind of just got used to it instead of the initial reaction of just excitement and fun. Now that I've calmed down. It's a weird album. I would still say it's good, but it has some very weird elements to it. The first track is an introduction. Now, Michael Romeo is known as being a talented and gifted guitarist. His first album was instrumental. So it's an entire album of basically him doing lead work. I haven't actually heard it, so I don't know how good it is. But you would expect he's doing enough. It's not just basically a foundation of a song and that would be it. It would be incredibly boring if that was the case. Again, I'm not sure if that is the case or not. So the introduction, I kind of expect Michael Romeo is going to be doing some lead work in the realms of Yngwie Malmsteen or Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, and the likes of that, you know, doing stuff. And he is in the introduction, but it's not like that. It's more of just making a sound. So it's not lead. It's kind of riffs. And it's kind of heavy. But it's not really doing much of anything. Again, this could be kind of world building. War of the Worlds is a concept. It's a story. So maybe he is setting the mood, the vibe, giving the atmosphere of the album. In many musicals, this is also portrayed. Phantom of the Opera has an introduction to set up the world building and vibe that we are going to be put in with. Same thing with a lot of other musicals. And it's a good way to set it. Sweeney Todd also has an introductory song which sets the vibe, the mood. So the introduction is technically, I imagine, trying to accomplish the same thing. But for me, it personally falls short. And the reason it falls short is because Sweeney Todd, for an introductory song, it is very gothic, very creepy, and very dark. It is huge, it's epic, it's really well written. Phantom of the Opera brings in that Phantom theme. That theme is iconic to the Phantom. It is great world building. Introduction to War of the Worlds is a riff, a few riffs. I don't personally kind of get what's going on. There's nothing creepy. War of the Worlds is gothic in nature. It's mechanical. It's cold. It's world coming to the brink of an end. The introduction doesn't tell me any of that. It's not cold. It's not mechanical. It's not gothic. It's... I don't get anything. It's just a thing. It is an introduction that has instruments in it for the sake of instruments. And this is opening the track, and it lasts for something like 3 minutes. Personally, I'd skip this. I think it is pointless. I think this could have been so much more. He doesn't have to do lead work. Obviously, he's a gifted guitarist, and it would be good to hear him do a 3-minute lead. To hear his capabilities, show off his chops. But if not, then it would be great just to kind of show his songwriting. He's the head of this. Let's see what he can compose, what he can write. But I don't get any of this. It's not a great start. Fear of the Unknown, the first actual track. This is kind of Symphony X style. This is a thing I have with Michael Romeo, is he has a style which is quite fast, very aggressive. And Fear of the Unknown follows in suit to that style. It's not musical, it's not slow, it's not melodic. It is fast, heavy, and technical. We are also introduced to our vocalist, his first ever performance on an album, and he is absolutely phenomenal. He has great range, his voice is always clean, he is actually singing. He has great range, he is very gifted of a vocalist, and I find it a great shame that this is his one and only performance and they've moved to a different vocalist. He is such a phenomenal singer. This first track, he definitely puts a lot more ferocity into his voice instead of it kind of just being the clean and open kind of style. It's got a lot of ferocity to it. The chorus is catchy, as you kind of come to expect from Michael Romeo, as you get fast, aggressive, fast riffs and then a very musical chorus. And then we get the solo. The solo is technical. What else are you expecting from Michael Romeo? This is one of the problems I have with Michael Romeo, is I am not going to argue that the guy lacks talent. He has talent. He is very gifted. He can do sweep picking, he can do an absolute humongous range of different styles and different techniques. But his solos are usually a display of his techniques and of his talents. So it is basically just a display, a show, but from songwriting, from writing it out, for having meaning, for anything, feeling, emotion, structure. Michael Romeo lacks all of these things. All of his solos are just fast, and that is kind of it. There are times where he'll go into a bit of a kind of phase where it's like, yeah, this is kind of following a melody, or it seems like he's kind of doing something, but it's always surrounded by so much speed, and it's just kind of nonsensical, where it's like, there's nothing to it. There are fast guitarists who can do speed and technical, but they have so much melody to them and great positioning of what is happening in order to kind of compose an overall sound and fluidity. As for with Michael Romeo, his fast solos just don't seem to have that kind of flow. It's just kind of speed, and then after that kind of speed, and then a solo after that it's speed, and then after that it's speed. Nothing. Can you take a Michael Romeo solo and remember all the individual parts? Is there a Michael Romeo solo where it's like there is a distinctive part which really sticks for you? It's like I can't get that part of the solo out of my head. I personally don't have any of that from him. I can't remember any of his solos. I've listened to 3 Symphony X albums a ton of times. I've listened to this album a fair few amount of times. I can't remember anything because they're not memorable. They come and I like that they're there. I'm not really invested, and then it ends. I'm not that bothered. But yeah, he's talented. But a songwriter, a composer of solos, he is not. Even composing music, he's very good at doing this very high energy gothic kind of sound, and doing all the technical capabilities. He's very good at doing that stuff and writing that and doing catchy choruses. He's very good at it. But he doesn't do anything else, even in songwriting. He is quite limited. He's good at one thing and one thing alone. Like Yngwie Malmsteen, he is a very gifted guitarist. A lot of people know he's very gifted, but a lot of people, a lot of very talented guitarists who know Yngwie, do also see Yngwie as a very flawed guitarist, because he does not have a lot of range and a lot of skill at doing kind of anything else. He has one thing, and that is all that he has going, when guitarists have not kind of more than one thing. There's not the guitarist has one kind of gift set and that is it. You just need to figure out how to nail it. It's like, no, there's many aspects to guitaring. There's so much. Michael Romeo doesn't really have a lot of techniques, and he has techniques and, you know, skills, but techniques as writing and portraying, it just lacks. The next track, Black, follows in suit. It's gothic, it's energetic. You get some kind of gothic choir kind of going on, which gives some nice theming to the album, that kind of gothic and the dark choir, the kind of menacing the darkness. It's quite good. Black has a better go with the vocalist. I don't know what his name is. But I technically prefer him in black. As I said, Fear of the Unknown, the verse, he sings with a bit more ferocity. Black, he sings a lot more cleaner, and there's got a nice little kind of rhythm to his voice. Solo, pretty much the same thing. So, the two tracks are good. Great energy. I'm loving the vocals. Backing robots. Now, this is different. Fear of the Unknown has a style to it, so does Black. It follows styles that of Symphony X. The only kind of difference being is technically a different vocalist. But Fucking Robots, this is something new. Fucking Robots has, what do you call it? Techno elements to it, dubstep. Now this is obviously going to split people. A lot of people do not like dubstep. Personally, I can't stand dubstep. I will never go out of my way to listen to a full-on dubstep album or song. But this is tied in with metal, and it's something I never listened to by itself. Therefore, I see it as just something different. When you listen to metal over and over and over and over again, it starts becoming super predictable, very samey, very boring, cliche even at times. So, getting this kind of shoved into metal to bring a whole new kind of flavour to it, I can respect that. I can. It's different. It's something new. And it kind of shows me what Michael Romeo does with working in this kind of field. Also, it kind of works with the fact that this is a concept. This is trying to tell a story about machines coming to Earth to take over. So bringing that dubstep, which is very mechanical kind of sound, mixing it in with the gothical music of Michael Romeo. This is world building. It's storytelling through music. A lot of music doesn't do that. They just kind of leave it to the lyrical content and the vocalist, while the music is basically just backing. But music can tell story without the use of words. It can set the theme, the mood, and everything. You don't need a vocalist. So it's nice the fact that the music kinda in Fucking Robots, it's not brilliant, but it does set an idea, which is obviously the robots, the machines coming down to Earth to take over. So I like that. It's world building. It's something new and different. It's fresh. So for all of these things, I do like it. It's just the fact that a lot of people just don't like dubstep. So for something new and fresh, and for doing the world building and theming for the concept, the fact is a lot of people aren't going to like it because they just won't be able to get over the dubstep element. So I need to obviously mention that. Another issue with the song is the introduction song, the first track of 3 minutes, is no solo to it. Fear of the Unknown Black has solos. Fucking Robots doesn't have solos. So that's two songs. The first one, no solo to it. Fucking Robots has no solo, and then Fear of the Unknown and Black have solos. And this is Michael Romeo's solo project. A little odd. I feel there is a missed opportunity. One, because Michael Romeo is supposedly a decent guitarist, you know, great and everything. I don't think he's great. I think he's gifted, but I don't think he's a great guitarist. But the fact with Fucking Robots, the fact that it's working with dubstep and theming and everything, it would have been interesting, because I'm guessing he didn't do a solo because he didn't want to take away from the dubstep elements and that kind of theming. So he didn't want to overshadow that or take away from it. And I understand that. I understand that way of thinking. But the fact is, why can't he just work with that? Why can't he work that into the narrative? His solo doesn't just have to be his typical soloing again. Like, obviously, I've just kind of said he's very limited, so I can kind of see why he didn't, because he's limited of a guitarist. He would probably just belt out a shred for the sake of it. The thing is, he could do his style mixed in with dubstep. If the dubstep worked in with his solo to give a unique sounding solo, it would change him up without him having to actually do anything, because the dubstep would just be programming and just adding effects into his solo, which will just be the same old of what he does. So it will give him a completely different style of solo without him actually having to try to do anything else. And it would be completely different and diverse. And it would fit into the narrative of the song. It's a massively missed opportunity. So that's a shame. It's fresh, it's different, but there is no solo, and I believe that if he were to do a solo and mix it in with the dubstep, it could have given him something very, very different for his career of soloing. Then the next song we get is Jin, or as I call it, The Jin. One of the longest songs on the album. Again, it's got some kind of gothic elements to it. It has fast solo to it. The vocals are absolutely phenomenal, as it always is. But again, War of the Worlds, it's a concept. And so far the album has done an introduction that didn't really introduce me to any of the world. It just seemed bland. Fear of the Unknown just kind of sounds like typical Symphony X. Black sounds like typical Symphony X, just with a different singer. Fucking Robots kind of introduced me to some kind of theming that I could kind of start getting into. I am in the world of War of the Worlds, as for the rest, I don't feel any world building. And the same thing goes with The Jin. There is no world building, there is no theming at all going through this. It comes in heavily, which is why I'm mentioning it here, in Believe. The track Believe actually has the strongest theming to it. Now, this is the ballad, kinda, of the album. It's not really a ballad, but it's just the kind of softest on the album. But it has the strongest theming. It has a lot of orchestrational elements to it. It has choir, orchestration, keys, piano, guitars. There is so much theming to it. And it builds it onto a massive scale. So it's like, I feel, because there is orchestration there to give that feel, that vibe, that mood. Same with the gothic choir of the pain, the fear, the depression. It's all there, and it's backed with the orchestration, and it's backed with the piano, which is a very haunting, chilling kind of sound. It has this very cold beauty to it. It's very creepy, and the song flows and it adapts and it shifts. Unlike any of the other tracks besides Dak and Robots to an extent, but Believe really takes it that step further. Even with the solo. It's not perfect, but Mike Romeo on the track Believe delivers the best solo of the album, because it's got a mood, it's got a vibe, so he has to now do a solo within the confines of what this song has built on. If he was a truly gifted guitarist, he will then be playing into this song. And for a certain aspect, he kind of is. It is melodic, it has some feel to it, but I can't get over the fact that it sounds like he is really, really holding back. It goes slow, but it's like every single part of it, although it has this kind of openness about it where notes can kind of linger for a while instead of him just blasting through them at 10 to the dozen, he's still going quite quickly through these notes. It's like a note is played, it rings out 1, 2, 3, go, 1, 2, 3, go, 1, 2, 3. It's like he's constantly trying to shift it, and it's like he's just like a puppy dog that is super excited and wants to play, and you're saying, no, you can't, sit, behave. That is kind of the way I kind of feel him approaching the solo, is he is trying to feel it, trying to do the emotion, but he's super giddy and excited, and you can hear it kind of coming out. Like you are just restraining an excited dog. So while there is some feel to it, and it is way better than the rest, he still has that trademark of himself coming through. Certain notes I don't think are held for as long as they should be. I do think the speed of it is going a bit too quickly. I think it should be slower. But the fact that there is such a solo in this album, I do appreciate it for what it is, as well as the overall song and theming of it. it makes it definitely one of the better tracks, if not the best track of the album. The next track, Differences. Again, this has a bit of theming to it. You have some orchestration, some kind of gothic choir voices as well. Brilliant singing again. But again, it's kind of like the orchestra is there and the choir is there, but you don't really know the feeling and the mood still. They're just there. There is an energy. I like the energy. It sounds really great. It's very catchy. Really like it. But it's hard to kind of get a gist of really where we are, what is happening. It's kind of there because there are kind of layers through the song, as I say, with the choir and the orchestra and everything, and the playing and the kind of tempo of the song. You get an idea. It's just not really well displayed. And then a fast solo, because obviously. Then we get War Machine, another instrumental track that has no lead work in it, so still no display of Michael Romeo. So I'm taking some breathy breaks. I'm a little sick at the minute, so I'm just trying not to be sick. So War Machine is the same as the introduction. It is just basically playing for the sake of playing. And I don't really know where we are, what the mood is. Besides, it seems kind of gothic. It's just not done well. It's there. It is. I'm not saying it's not, and it's void of it. Every track does have some amount of theming to it, but because everything kind of sounds the same. Jin is energetic, Differences is energetic, Black is energetic, For the Unknown is energetic. A lot of people refer to this album as it is literally just Symphony X. So Symphony X, every single album, all sounds like The War of the Worlds, which is a concept that's telling a story that's not even written by Michael Romeo, it's written by somebody else. So that tells you, doesn't it, that the tracks are quite similar, and Michael Romeo always has a very same style thing because he knows one thing and he's good at it, and it's all he really does. There's some fluctuations to it, of course, but it's not diverse, definitely not. Not what I'd say, anyway. So War of the Worlds, the title track is just an instrumental of not much of anything. It's very disappointing. Oblivion, great chorus, really good chorus. Fast solo, because obviously. And then Constellations. Still basically more of the same. And that is the album until part 2 comes out, which I'm really looking forward to. And to what this little singer has to bring. But for this album, the vocalist is absolutely fantastic. It is such a shame that we don't have more of this guy. I think it is a disservice to him as well as the metal world in general. I think metal needs this guy. It deserves to have this guy. I think it does metal an absolute disservice to not have such an amazing voice. A lot of people who review this album just kind of says, well, that Russell Allen's not in it, so no. And that's it. Well, he's not Russell Allen, but he's not trying to be Russell Allen. He is him. He is not Russell Allen, unless he would be Russell Allen. He is him. And this is Michael Romeo's solo project, not Symphony X. Now, the comparison obviously isn't really helping the fact that it does have very similar kind of tone and style of Symphony X, and it's not very separated from that. Probably isn't doing any benefits to that thing. So, yeah, there is that, but the vocalist is himself. And as I said, Russell Allen has his own style, which is to sing and then have a lot of grit and not really be singing because he's just being full of grit and that is it. This vocalist actually does sing. It's always clean. He does have the bit of aggression to him with a bit of ferocity, but it is still basically clean sung. And he has range. He is a higher vocalist than Russell. Russell having a deeper voice, this guy having a higher. So they're different. But this is Michael Romeo. This is not Symphony X. Russell Allen is Russell Allen. This guy is him. So The people who are saying these things are just really dumb. It's not Symphony X. And if this had Russell Allen in it, then it may as well just be bloody Symphony X. But it isn't. So get over it. The next aspect. The vocalist, fantastic. I think he's brilliant. The songs have loads of energy in it. Fear of the Unknown, great chorus, great energy. Black, I love the rhythm. I love the melody of the voice. Chorus, great. Jin, the same thing. Believe, great world building, absolutely phenomenal. Great vocals, same with Differences. Oblivion, great chorus, great vocals. Same with Constellations, great energy, and all of that. And some really great playing by everyone. But then the problems. We got a first track that doesn't really do anything. We got the War Machine that doesn't really do anything. Then Fucking Robots doesn't even have a solo. That is 3 songs on this which don't have solos. And then Symphony X has solos in every single song. But this is Michael Romeo's solo project. And there is less of him in this album than Symphony X. There is less of him on his own album than Symphony X. That just seems very odd to me. And then you take them 2 tracks out, which then brings the runtime further down, making this album short, and have less actual tracks to it. And then if you take out Feckin' Robots to get solos purely with solos in it and Michael Romeo, then there's even less. It is very, very unusual. And then the theming is not really there. It's supposed to be a storytelling, it's a concept, it's supposed to have a vibe and a feel to it, but it's missing. Because War of the Worlds is, again, a musical. It's an album, it has a sound to it. And this album doesn't really match that, really, at all. It's got some tracks are better than others, some are completely missing it all bloody together. And then Michael Romeo himself. He is very gifted, he is incredibly fast, he's got so many different techniques and skills, he knows a lot, he has a lot of skill. But when it comes to doing a solo, it is purely just to show off speed and go through a lot of different techniques. It is a display of technique and speed, but aside of that, there is nothing. If a song needs something musical, a feel, an emotion, he goes in and then just shows his gift, his talent, and his skill base. And he does that every single time. Believe, as I said, and other aspects, he does kind of come out a bit and then try to do something. But overall, it's so flat falling. So I loved this album when it first came out. I thought it was phenomenal. But calming down and then really thinking about it, there are 2 tracks that are a complete waste of bloody time. Fucking Robots is missing a solo, which really could have benefited if it tied into what Fucking Robots is going to. It could have given a really diverse solo. It's Michael Romeo's solo project, the 2 instrumental tracks. He could have done some kind of lead, a melody to go for the theming, but didn't. Fucking Robots, he could have done something, but he didn't in his own project. It is really bad. The world building and writing of that, he doesn't understand it. It's not displayed to the best of abilities. But still, the vocal performance is great throughout. The energy is fantastic. It is really good. But there are some flaws. So, rating it, I'd give it an 8.5. It's great. The solos are good. They're technical. The energy is great. The vocal performance is great. The musicianship throughout is great. The orchestration and quiet is great. It's just the solos are not versatile or well thought through. The idea of the album and concept is not really well delivered. 2 tracks are completely pointless, and Fucking Robots misses a mark. Which is why the score comes down from what it could have been if all these things were fixed, of 9, if not higher than that. Hopefully War of the Worlds Part 2 improves on these things, but it's a bit weird. This came out in, like, as I said, 2017, 2018. But I read that part 2 had already actually been recorded. He just wanted part 1 to have its time in the spotlight before he put out the second part. But it's been a fair few years and it's a different singer, so I don't know if he went in and redid it. I don't know. But either way, I'm really looking forward to it because I love the energy, I love the technicality to the songs. It's just I wish Michael Romeo was a lot more versatile than what he is. I don't mind him displaying his speed and talent. It gives great energy and it's great. But I still would like a mix of things instead of a full-fledged album full of that. So 8.5, still a great album and still a great score. And that's all I really have to say on the album, so I'll leave it there. And I'll see you in the next one, which should be Bullet for My Valentine's self-titled album. Oh my fucking god.